Welcome to the Anxiety Coaches Podcast, a relaxing and informative show where we explore anxiety, panic, and PTSD, sharing how you can overcome them for life.
Aloha! Welcome back to the Anxiety Coaches Podcast. I'm your host and coach, Gina Ryan, and I am so happy to be with you again today as together we can consider the many ways to bring your mind and body back to its natural peace and calm. In today's episode, I'm talking about handling the negative messages that anxiety speaks. We are all aware of how negative our mind can be talking, and these are often simply anxious thoughts. Some of the things that come up when I talk to people in sessions or even in the group, when people are saying, "Oh, I never even thought of that as being an anxious message," or that thing that I'm saying to myself was an anxious thought. So I thought I'd bring up today some of the little negative quotes that anxiety could be speaking. And then I want to talk about what we can do to actually make a difference in the way that we are handling the thoughts that go through our head, because I want you to remember, even before I get started with the messages, your thoughts are not particularly true, real, important, appropriate. They are just there. It is how we respond, not react, to what is going through our head, how we decide to handle it, that makes all the difference in the world. So let's see how it is that anxiety could be talking to us. I don't know. You tell me if any of these are familiar to you. I hear these things a lot. I have heard these things in my own head. I hear them from clients, from group members, from emails. And I, of course, have experienced these negative messages myself. The idea is not that these are pushed away or swept away, transformed forever, that we never have these again. The whole idea is that we recognize them for what they are: negative, anxious messages. See if this can ring true to you. You aren't good enough. Did your mind ever talk to you like that? You can't do that. You're not good enough. Who do you think you are? Right? These things have gone to our heads. Another one: you'll never have the life you want. You're just too anxious. How about, you'll always be anxious and in fear. It will never change. You can't get the career you want. Who would hire you? You aren't deserving of love or a relationship. That's for other people. You aren't worthy of a relationship. We want to remember, anxiety steals self-worth. You don't deserve a good life. This is simply your lot in life. Get used to it. That is not the same as acceptance. Okay? All right. You'll be a horrible parent, or you are a horrible parent. Parenting's just not for you. You will never be able to hold down a good job. You'll never be able to get the job or the career that you've always dreamed of. You're just not good enough. Again, anxiety stealing the self-worth. You're damaged goods. You're broken. You're less than. You're fill in the blank. You'll always be a failure. You'll never own your own home because you can't handle that much of a commitment. I could go on forever with these, and I bet you have a list of your own. it doesn't take much from any of us to be able to fill in the blank of the negative comments that our mind can say to us. We all have them. They come through. The things that go through our head are not necessarily what we need. It doesn't mean just because it went through our head that it is a message for us to pay attention to. So let's look at some of the ways that we can begin to look at these messages and what they might mean. So many of them are keeping us stuck. They keep us not doing the work of taming the nervous system and learning to heal and calm down, because they feed the negative cycle of fear, adrenaline, fear. So we are always in that cycle. These kinds of thoughts, you could pick any of those that I said, you aren't good enough. That is sending a negative message that we internalize as important, and then it keeps us on the edge. It keeps us on guard because we're not good enough or we can't do things. We'll always be like this. That keeps us in fear, which feeds the adrenaline and keeps us in more fear. That's that fear, adrenaline, fear cycle. Focus or attention to these thoughts leads to decreased motivation and deeper feelings of helplessness. This is how we stay stuck. And this is where we see anxiety and depression begin to couple up together. People always ask me, is depression a part of anxiety, or is anxiety a part of depression? Can they come together? And this is where it can happen. When we are listening to these negative messages that the anxious mind is churning out, we can begin to think less of ourselves, think that we can't do anything of value and that we are not worthy, and we can become depressed. This line of thinking leads to a lowered ability to see opportunities, limited thinking, perfectionism, depression, relationship challenges. So what is the way to handle all these negative messages that anxiety speaks? I have a few ideas here for you. Actually, I have 5 of them outlined here. Let's see what we can do to keep ourselves from going down the wormhole with this kind of negative thinking. I want you to be aware of your inner critic. Actually notice if how you are, your negative, anxious messages, speaking to yourself, is how you would speak to a good friend. Are those negative messages things you would say to a good friend? I bet not. Be a good friend to yourself. We can make that kind of a change. Be as kind to yourself as you would to a friend or a little one. Remind yourself that thoughts and feelings are not facts. Your thoughts can be skewed. They can be biased and influenced by your moods, by your environment, by your energy level, by your food that you have eaten. Your thoughts and feelings are not facts, and you just need to be able to run your thoughts through that filter. Is this a fact? Don't run off with every thought that comes up in your mind. The next one, the third one, is to give your anxiety, this thing that speaks the negative messages, a name. This can help you get some distance from your anxious messages. Many clients have given a nickname to their negative message speaker, to their anxiety. Think of something goofy that you can call your anxiety or your negative message speaker to keep it light, right? We don't have to come up with another depressing or negative name. Think of something goofy so that you can add some lightness to the heavy tone that anxiety carries. Make it so that you actually want to laugh or smirk when you come up with that name, so that it's labeled something that you're thinking, I don't need to take this so seriously. This is not a fact. I know I have heard people use the term Debbie Downer, negative Nelly. There's lots of things like that you could do. But I think if you could just come up with a goofy kind of name that's important to you or that makes you feel a little bit lighter, that might be more fun and put you in a little bit of a different frame of mind when you are trying to deal with those thoughts that come up. You can say, hey, goofy name, are you talking to me? And do it with some attitude. We have to practice with ourselves. If it doesn't come naturally, that's fine. Why would it? You're in a negative state of mind. You're in an anxious mood. It's not going to come easily. But these are the things that we must work on to reframe and change the way that we are thinking and taking it all so seriously. The fourth one that I have for you is that I want you to practice what we call containment. I want you to actually take those negative messages and just gather it up, like separate it out from your day. Like, okay, put a little bubble around it and limit those negative messages. Grab them up and limit them to a time of day or for a limited amount of time. Kind of like the old worry hour, right? We've talked about that in the past, that, you say, okay, at 5 p.m., when I'm walking to the car in the parking lot, I'm going to review all of those negative messages and deal with them. You're just putting it off. You're putting it into a little container. You're putting it into a corral so that you can keep it at bay until you have the frame of mind or time to look at it. Or you could put it on the back burner. This is the way I like to look at things. Put it on the back burner in the big soup pot, saying, here you go, I'll get to you later. I see you. I hear that negative message, but I don't have time for you right now. Put it in the pot on the back burner. And you know what? There's no real need to go back to stir the pot. You don't need to reevaluate these thoughts. You don't need to give them a lot of attention. You can just let them sit there on the back burner and let it evaporate. These are not things that need your attention. Why would calling yourself a bad name or telling yourself some of these limiting thoughts, such as you aren't deserving of love, why would that be something you need to revisit? It's simply a negative, anxious thought that is passing through. Why? Why do we get these thoughts? Why do they keep coming up? Because we are being pointed in the direction of safety. This is somehow going to get you off your butt to do something, to run, to protect yourself, to stay away from danger. It's your mind trying to keep you physically safe. And why? Because there's a part of your brain, the amygdala, that is stimulated enough that it's assessing that you are in danger. And so it's sending the messages to the body for you to fight or flight, or freeze, or please, but mostly fight or flight. You got to do something. Get out of danger. Well, how is you aren't deserving of love, protection? Because then you will stay away from love. You will not seek other people. You won't reach out for friendships and so forth. So your mind is trying to keep you safe. But the reality is you are already safe. It is your body being in that heightened state. And again, it's the cycle. You have a physical body that is acting as if you are in danger. So the thoughts become negative messages, trying to keep you safe and small, out of danger. Nobody can see you. You can't do anything that could be risky. Why? Because it's trying to keep you safe. But you must come back with, I am safe. if you're listening to me, you're safe right now. But you may be having a nervous system that is in fight or flight simply because of physical things. You could be drinking caffeine, and that'll do it every time to get you started in the cycle. Or it could be that you're having negative messages that feed the cycle, that fear, adrenaline, fear cycle. So we need to break that. Practice that containment. Put those thoughts in the back burner and let them know you'll get back to them later, and then just leave them there. And the final one I have is I want you to reframe the thoughts, the messages. Look at them from a different perspective. Like, well, what if I really am good enough and I won't be anxious forever? Turn it around. If the thought was, you're not good enough, you're going to be anxious forever, so just forget about whatever it is you wanted to do. You can't do it. You'll be anxious forever. Turn it around and make it into an encouragement. What if I'm not anxious forever? What if I am good enough? What could that look like? Start dreaming again. Get out of the small thinking. Let your mind open, expand, and dream. You need to be in a little bit of a relaxed state to do that. So that is sending awesome messages to your body, to your nervous system, that all is well when you're dreaming of all the awesome things you can do in life. These all take time to use, so you might need to set up some reminders so that you can get them to be more of a regular rote practice, but you're not going to remember right away. It takes time for that to sink in. So in order to do that, I want you to put little reminders around the house so that you can remember to make these changes in your reactions. Change your reactions to responses to those negative messages. Like you could put a note in your journal to remind you. Every time you're writing in your journal, you'll be reminded that you can look at things differently. This is not who you are just because you had these negative, anxious messages. That does not mean you are those things. You could put a reminder on your phone or on your computer, sticky notes on your mirror. Go for it. Really change up what you are thinking about and how you are responding versus reacting to those thoughts that come up. It's a wonderful way to change things because the thoughts are going to keep coming, but you won't always be responding to them the same way. You will learn to respond to them rather than react. Right now, you're probably not even aware of many of the thoughts. That's why the first thing I brought up was I want you to be aware of that inner critic and notice those thoughts. Would you talk to a good friend like that? That's the perfect place to start. I hope this episode has been helpful and that you'll share the show with someone that may need just a little bit more peace and calm in their life. We never really know who is suffering in silence. And now for today's quote. You don't have to control your thoughts. You just have to stop letting them control you. And that's from Dan Millman. I'll be back in a few more days with another podcast. Until then, be well and aloha.
Thanks so much for joining us for today's episode of the Anxiety Coaches Podcast. Find more information at theanxietycoachespodcast.com.